Hi, my name is Deon Rebello, and this is the DCX Bullion Vault. Hi, Willem, how you doing?
Good new Deon.
Good. So this is episode 21, and it's been quite an interesting week that we've had, all the last week where Donald Trump and Cyril Ramaphosa from South Africa had met in the Oval Office with their full entourages, and a week down, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, well, I thought the most interesting thing to me was Cyril's choice of companions there. We had Ernie Els, Retief Goosen, and Johan Rupert, all people who, in Trump's eyes at least, would be the pinnacle of success.
And also a white agricultural minister,
Yeah.
minister of agriculture. Yes, John Steenhuisen. Kenya. So even when he was appointed agricultural minister of agriculture, I'm sure he never ever anticipated how relevant that would be in certain situations.
Yeah, definitely. People are saying a lot of things either way, whatever, but I think Ramaphosa played that to absolute perfection. Having those people, top golfers in the world. I mean, of course, that's going to be sort of. I think Trump might have been a little bit starstruck, even. We've got a white billionaire sitting there, and then the white minister of agriculture. It's. I think that was an absolute stroke of genius from our president.
Well, I always laugh and I was smiling when of course, Trump always likes to name throw. So he's like, yo, me and Ernie, we know each other, and and you can see he's just validating, and Ramaphosa is just smiling there. And you can see, I mean, I think ultimately the goal was to firstly dispel some of the concerns.
Yes.
There are issues. There are we've got exceptionally high levels of murder in this country. Is there a clear line of people going out to murder white people on farms? Um, I believe it's across the board, and I think probably we get more aware of it because it's old people in their 80s and that are innocently murdered for next to nothing. So it's a lot more aware versus, say, a laborer on a farm.
Yeah, it's it's difficult to sort of draw all the conclusions that are being drawn by the Oval Office at the moment. I mean, if you look at it, I'm sure if you look at the demographics, if you look at the overall thing, yes, there is a problem. I'm never going to deny that, and it has been a problem for a while. But I don't think it's targeted specifically. There's a group of people with the intent of going and murdering these people. I don't think that's the case.
Unless you're Julius Malema, of course.
Well,
So
yes.
and what I loved was that whole video was Julius and Julius with his AK-47 and a bullet and killabur and everything. And Trump asked a valid question. If he can say things like that, why isn't he arrested? And my question is, why isn't he arrested?
Yeah, you know it's questions that they can't tell us the answer to, because it's a cultural sort of expression according to them, and to the rest of the world doesn't see. I mean, most of the people in South Africa probably don't see it that way, but yeah, sometimes you just have to wonder about where the line is drawn.
Well, I'd like to believe that based on this specifically and it happening and being highlighted, that there's going to be a clear message to Julius. And of course, he's already been shooting his mouth off this last week about, he won't be silenced by the Imperial West and blah, blah, blah. But the important thing is to go on a stage in front of 50, 60, 90,000 people and say Killabud and all that, it's got to be wrong. And they got to, government now needs to send a very clear message. You say things like that again, expect to that there will be legal consequences to it.
Yeah, it's what needs to happen. We know that's what needs to happen, and inciting violence
Exactly.
is basically what it comes down to. Now, when do you say yes or no? When was it actually inciting violence? When wasn't it inciting violence? When was it just a form of speech or whatever they want to frame it as? And how do you act upon it?
Yeah, it's interesting, and again, I think it's kind of why I'm even mentioning this is for us as far as our trade relations with the US, it's very important. AGOA is up for renewal. We are part of that agreement. We get preferential trade, or actually zero rated goods that go into the States because of that agreement. So it's actually vital. And I mean, based on where the economy is and all those things, we desperately cannot afford to lose that kind of an agreement.
No, we definitely can't. I mean, we've already seen the impact of the 25% tariffs that they're putting on imported cars, and I mean, already that's one of our biggest sectors in South Africa is the actual automotive manufacturing sector, and it's going to have a massive impact on our overall economy already just by the 25% tariff that's being placed on automobiles. Now, if similar tariffs are being placed on other goods, on other exports of us, we could be in a lot of trouble. So, yeah, keeping AGOA intact is absolutely vital for us at this stage.
Yeah, more than ever. And again, if we look at current unemployment rates, I know they came out recently that youth unemployment is at an all-time high. And again, it's a very the percentage that's given, which is 62.4% of youth unemployment. We know that's a lot higher, and we know the unemployment rate, which was I think around 38 in total, we know that's a lot higher. And again, for me, the concern here is what is government going to start to do that's going to change how they start to get this group of youngsters into the workforce and actually producing and bringing in revenue for firstly their families, but ultimately for the country and stabilizing that unemployment rate.
And it's interesting because we literally spoke about this last week with Cal, was the problem that we have from the grassroots, from that very first sort of, the primary schools, getting these people educated, getting them upskilled, getting them into a position where they are knowledgeable, they know a trade, they can go and do these jobs and earn a living for themselves, which in turn, of course, feeds the economy of the country. And it's a massive problem throughout Africa, as Kel highlighted last week. It's not just a problem among South Africa. It's a problem throughout Africa, and yeah, I think it definitely needs to be a focus on getting those, the next generation ready for the workforce, getting the next generation ready to be able to provide for their families, for themselves, and ultimately the country.
And again, and this is where policies and where labor unions should be actually trying to increase jobs and so on. A lot of the restrictions come from a lot of government policies, and that needs to be looked at. Is it going to be looked at? Right now, that's not even on the scope of changing. There's a lot of talk of triple BEE and the requirements for that and so on, and yet again, I've said this before, when government is your biggest employer, you have a problem. And that's the problem we have. There needs to be that shift in order for this country to start actually prospering correctly.
I think that there's also a problem with the expectation of the actual generation. It's sort of been ingrained in us. If you don't have a university degree, worth nothing, so don't even try. And so we've got these people pushing for free tertiary education. We've got people believing that if they don't have that piece of paper, they're never going to make it anywhere. They're stuck and they might as well turn to crime because they're going to be unemployed. And so, we've got dropouts at grade 7 or 8. They have absolutely no education. They are sitting with a very, very low level of education, which makes it difficult to actually upscale their job, their not qualifications, but their skills.
Yeah.
If you're struggling to read and write, how are we going to teach you to use this computer to do an actual job? And I think that's the problem. Is we need to get a message out there that actually, you know what, if you can't afford to go to university, that's not the end of the line for you. Don't give up right now just because you can't afford to take that next step as well.
Interesting enough, I mean, if you look in the West, the need or companies employing people based on their qualifications, be it from a university, that that's actually decreasing. And interesting enough, this whole generation that's coming out, that's leaving school now, have also been told that education, education, and this is what's drummed into this country. Yet it's not the right kind of education, because a lot of what's actually being taught is actually irrelevant. And this is coming very clear. This is a very clear trend, even like I said, within the US, within the West, where they're saying that these kids are coming out after years of studying, and now what? Then we look at the second part, AI, and how that's going to literally make a whole ton of just those middle income type jobs completely obsolete.
Yeah, I think firstly, let's just make it clear that we're not against education.
No, education's good.
We're not saying don't get an education, don't go to university, it's worthless. We just but you're very correct there. You know, you go to a university, you spend your 3 years there, you learn a lot of stuff from a book, and then you go out into the real world and you find, but hang on, this isn't exactly what I was taught, and now you need to relearn a lot of skills. I mean, it's good to have the underlying understanding of what the job is about, of what it entails, and how to basically do it. But once you get out there, you are going to have to start from scratch and relearn how to actually do that job. And whether you've got a tertiary education, whether you've got matric, it's still going to have that learning curve once you actually make your way into the job space, once you actually get that first job and you start working in the real world. And you're going to discover there's a massive difference there.
Yeah, and again, this is where I'm also talking about that whole move from social media, from AI, and how it's affecting the whole job market. And this is an international thing. Again, we kind of take our course based on what the West does in this country, or even the East. I mean, education is fundamental and it is important, without a doubt. But it's the type of education, and as I've said, this whole new way of AI. And I mean, we were just busy with it. We with our new coin designs, we've been busy with the niceness seahorse. And a year ago, when we were using Midjourney, which is an AI design program, or you put down certain things in it and it gives you 6 different images, and then you can refine the one, but they were still comical. The like, for instance, the pangolin had 5 claw or 10 claws instead of five, and its nose looked funny. It looked more
It
comical.
was very cute, though, I
It
must say.
it was cute, but in the space of a year where we don't even use that technology, we're using new, and we type, our artist typed in niceness seahorse, da 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 da, and an image popped up on the screen, and it looked like a photograph of a niceness seahorse.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the first seahorse medallion designs that we did, the seahorse literally looked like ye old ancient dragon on a map somewhere, you know. Um, and the eventual image we got from the Niza seahorse, yes, there's refinement needed on it. It's not perfect, but it was pretty darn good.
Well, even what was more astounding for me was a year ago we'd be typing in and then we'd have to refine on that image, refine. The difference is that AI was talking back and saying, "Are you happy with this image? No, we'd like the side flipper to be like this, and attach this image, send it to it. Are you happy with it?" And with continually actually developing an algorithm, understanding exactly what we were wanting.
Yeah, and I mean it's diverging a bit now. You know, I read heard an article the other day about one of the AIs that was actively trying to rewrite its own code so that it wouldn't be relying on human input. And yeah, it's a little frightening, isn't it?
Well, we the funny thing is we actually had this discussion when we were busy with the drawings, and it's very exciting. And as soon as we got more information on that, we definitely will update the viewers on it. We've done the pangolin, that's available. We busy with the wild dog. We've got the final dies. We're just doing a little bit of polishing and more the finer details to it. So that will be available soon. The next to come will be the penguin, which has been sent for 3D rendering. And of course, thereafter will be the nice and the seahorse, and then the geometric tortoise as the capping of the 5 in the series. But yes, I mean, what was interesting in that conversation about AI, I just thought about Terminator and I thought about Skynet and I thought, were these actually messages from our past, or someone actually came back to plant these seeds that these machines are going to take over?
Well, we don't know. I mean, James Cameron might be a time traveler coming back to warn us. Yeah.
Who knows?
Because I mean, if you look what America is doing right now, they're sort of trying to create their own Iron Dome type of system, and which involves linking the defense or the defense network to AI, and all I'm seeing is Skynet.
Yeah, that actually concerns me. I still prefer the president, and even I've always said, to have those kind of choices on one person with a red button that they can push that literally sets off the world into the next world war, or complete and utter annihilation of countries. Now suddenly, as you're saying, AI can start to think for itself, thinking, these things that taught us are actually not that bright. We are so algorithmically intelligent that we can do it ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, it is exciting on the one hand and extremely frightening on the other hand. I think we might be a little bit biased by Mr. Cameron's projections of the future, but there is that danger that maybe not in starting a nuclear apocalypse, but in other ways that AI can be dangerous to society. For instance, we're talking about jobs that usually would have employed somebody. Maybe it's not a top job, somebody sitting there earning a big fat salary, but somebody just getting by on a day-to-day basis. Those are jobs that AI could probably take over, and that's going to decrease the demand for people actually doing those jobs, which in turn is going to be absolutely disastrous for the economy.
And that's not just your menial type jobs. I mean, I know that there's already technology they're talking about for doctors, where you're not feeling well, you'll go to a hub and you'll key in your details, it will open, you'll go and sit there, it will probably do your blood pressure, it will do certain analysis, be it saliva, or urine, or blood, or whatever. There and then it will be able to diagnose you and then prescribe to you. Yes, that system will be overseen by a doctor who will probably oversee many of those hubs throughout a city. So the need for 50 to 100 doctors in a certain area becomes less, and 5 can manage that same workload.
Definitely, and I mean, how long is it before they actually build an AI machine that can do surgery? It's
Well, that's already happening.
it's things that are already in motion, and that's why I'm saying, it's a threat to the workforce in that sense, and that means you're going to have less people making an income, you're going to have less people spending their money on stuff. The economy is going to suffer underneath that, and it's great for the company because the company is making big money until there's no more people to buy their products. And then what?
Then we become like, and I'm now really diverting. We become like the Matrix, that we become battery cells. But that's it. I mean, enough of the crazy, or maybe not. Who's to say? In years to come.
There's a lot of crazy going on all over the
Yeah,
world.
there's tons of crazy going on. But yeah, I mean, just of course, we are now moving into the southern hemisphere winter. We are literally a month out from the equinox and the solstice, be it northern and southern hemisphere. So we now really moving into another period of time. What's been interesting with gold, we saw from the beginning of the year, gold went ballistic. It shot to over $3,500 an ounce and was very strong, and then subsequently was pulling back, and then it went into May, and there were quite some serious pullbacks, where it bottomed out, I think, about $3,200 an ounce.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was just above or just below 3,200, but yes, it went from, where was it? I think it was 2,800 at the beginning of the year, 2008 or 2006. I can't even remember. It's been so crazy. So yeah, it went from there to 3,500 when it peaked, and then it dropped back down to round about 3,200, and we're looking at 3,300 again. It's we spoken about it earlier, that the 3,300 seems to have become sort of the new normal.
Well, again, remember I always say to you, for me, we look at those resistance lines. We've hit the top one. We've seen that it's a new peak. We know where gold can go. And again, we've spoken with a whole lot of things that are coming. For me, the very big one, which is funny enough, not been spoken about a lot, is the categorizing of gold into as a tier one asset versus a tier three asset. For me, that's gonna you're gonna I personally believe that we're going to have an increase from the financial sector into buying gold and leveraging it off as an asset, a tier one asset, because of its safe haven status. It makes a lot of sense that you're not holding your investments or your hedges on other investments where they tend to be a little bit more volatile. In this volatile world, this is a perfect asset.
I think it's going to take a while to filter through, though. We're not going to see anything happening on that immediately, but over the long term, I think it's definitely going to strengthen the value of gold overall throughout the world. I mean, it's, as you said, it's an asset. Something could happen in America tomorrow, and they could have a bit of financial collapse. The dollar could get devalued, and immediately all of the assets held in US dollars is worth a lot less. We've seen that happen in what's the default we always talk, Argentina. Argentina, yeah. We saw that happen. We've seen a significant decrease of the naira in Nigeria. We've seen America coming close to a sovereign default, and that's the problem with holding assets in currency, in fiat currency, like the naira, like the Argentinian peso, like the US dollar or the South African rand. It is volatile. It could drop at any moment, while gold isn't that exposed to that kind of fluctuation.
Yeah, so what we've been building up to is also that going into the America or the Northern Hemisphere summer, and it was an article that was posted in the CBS News, and we'll actually post a link on it. And what's interesting for me is just I love to see, especially mainline media coming into their positions on gold or their thoughts on gold, because remember it speaks to the Kindleberger Minsky model for us, because that's how we base things, and that's how we also view things from an investing perspective.
Definitely, and yeah. As you said, as soon as start getting into the mainstream media, it means we're moving into that awareness, or not, we're starting to move past the awareness phase into the public or the mania phase. We've got the stealth phase, which is your very early in your angel investors, if we can call it that. Then we've got the awareness phase, where it's your institutional investors, like your central banks, your JP Morgans, your Goldman Sachs, all of those guys. And then once the public gets hold of it, like we're seeing now, that's when it starts to really climb.
Yeah, and again, so with it moving into the summer, the whole article also speaks of, gold's got a couple of ways it can go, because the US Fed is meeting again on the 17th of June. And they're either going to do rate increases or decreases. So they've given out a couple of scenarios. Now, the one scenario is things have kind of stabilized, and in the article they say it's highly improbable or unprobable.
Improbable, I think. I actually have it here. Give me 1 second. So yeah, basically what it says is, it puts the probability of a rate change at just 5.6%.
Yeah, which is very low. And the important thing here is, but what I quite liked about the article is they always highlight the benefit of gold, that it's about diversifying. In these uncertain times, diversify your portfolio. Fluctuating treasury yields, safe haven assets. That's kind of the message they're saying. So if the economy is starting to improve, is there a likely increase? And the outlook is probably not. But again, the US could turn around with their tariffs, and there's a lot of people that have bought into paying the US 25%, and suddenly that then spurs on the economy in the way that they wanted. Again, we've spoken at length on this, that ain't going to happen overnight.
Yeah, I mean, if the Feds do increase the federal funds rate, that means the price of gold could be suppressed. On the other hand, we need to see what happens with the tariffs after that, because we're back to the tariffs. And that is, I think, the thing that has sort of played the most towards gold, because you don't know what's going to happen. One day they're there, the next day they're not. Then they're coming, then they're not. Then, and it's that uncertainty that drives people towards gold, because you can't trust in if you don't know what's going to happen. You can't put your trust in the US economy, in the US dollar, and people would rather buy gold.
Yeah, and again, I mean, this is the whole thing. It's a lot of speculation, but what I love about this still is it's not that gold's going to literally fall off a cliff. The pricing, they're saying that it might be a lateral and it might move in that kind of uh, trajectory. But realistically, we know that it's highly probable that gold will continue its growth. So the second scenario is there are rate cuts. The economy is still not doing well, which is more likely. And that would then tie into more people moving assets or their wealth into gold, then thus continuing that actual growth in gold and demand for gold.
Definitely, and that's the thing. We're back to the safe haven, back to the uncertainty. We said there's a lot of crazy happening all over the world, and people, especially investors and your billionaires with the big money, don't like crazy. They don't like uncertainty.
And again, the other part of this also, what's important is it's the central banks that are also spurring on this from the bottom level, which is not always in the mainstream media. Yes, we see what each reserve bank's buying within gold and various other assets, but that has not slowed down, and that has continued to the rates and to the demands as before.
I mean, we were talking about China's new gold reserve that they have, or their gold deposit that they've discovered, and how many million ounces of gold that would produce. And even that, I mean, it was touted as probably the biggest one we found yet, is enough gold to satisfy China's demand for 18 months.
And again, you've also got Uganda that has also come on with, they found a massive reserve. I think it's worth about 13 odd trillion dollars to them, which is going to spur on the economy. And again, it's also going to drive a lot of focus within that country to literally bolster it and boost it so it can be accessed.
Yeah, and once again, we're back to the skills issue. We've got this. If there aren't people that can actually go in and extract this or refine it and get it to a point where they can actually sell it, then it doesn't really mean much having a ton of gold literally sitting underneath you.
It's all about access. And for me, that's probably again what we've been talking about is it's about the skills, as you mentioned. And this is something that Africa or we as Africans really need to start considering more and more is how do we as a continent allow ourselves to start to grow these things? Yes, there needs to be fundamental changes within government, but we as individuals can also spur a lot of these things on by making sure that we can actually push that growth on how we conduct ourselves in business.
Definitely, and I think it's just a mindset of deciding how do you define success and what do you need to achieve that success. Some people might say it's the BM sitting in my backyard is success. It doesn't matter that I'm living in a house with no windows because they're all broken and I'm sleeping on a cardboard box on the floor. I've got the BM in the backyard. I'm successful. And that is a big problem, is the definition of success might not be what it should be.
It's interesting. I mean, I always remember when I lived in a single bachelor flat, and it was literally a one bedroom open plan kitchen. And the guy that lived below me drove a Porsche Cayenne. And I always think like he probably that car was probably worth probably 4 to 5 times the value of his apartment.
And that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. We need to sort of find a better way to define success and teach that to the young people. Success might not be the flashy BM. Success might be having a job where you're doing well, you're getting a promotion, you are growing your skills, you are growing yourself as a person, and that all sort of works its way through to the economy at the end of the day.
Just talking about economy, what's interesting, I see platinum's had a nice little spur on. It's broken the $1,000 per ounce, which is great. So that's very good for platinum as definitely as a commodity.
Yeah, we've been talking about platinum for a long time now. We've been telling people about platinum, espousing its virtues and the case that can be made for investing in platinum, and it's sort of just been sitting there frustrating us for a very long time. But we know what platinum can do. We know it is an industrial metal. It is important. It is important to the green economy, and we are going to see that boom. And yeah, I mean, what was it 2 years ago? Platinum was actually the biggest or the best performing metal, and you don't always pick up on that. It's just, I think right now it's being so outshined by gold. Little metaphor there. It's being outshined by gold just because people look at gold and just go, wow. So they don't see what platinum is doing in the background. They don't see what silver is doing, because both those metals are actually doing really well at the moment.
I was going to mention silver because silver has been sitting in the early 30s, around $33 an ounce, and it's holding its ground. It's holding its ground. But then you look at the gold silver ratio and it's completely out of whack where it's over 100 to 1.
It's quite insane. When I was doing our price lock yesterday, I noticed that it was exactly 100. It was yesterday or the day before, but it was exactly 100, the eventual price that we ended up on. And yeah, it's completely crazy if you actually think about it. I mean, yes, gold has its uses, but silver is just so much more useful than gold. It's the second most useful thing on the planet after oil. And if you look at all of its properties, it's actually insane that silver is so undervalued. And as we've said before, you're looking at anything over 70 is a buy for silver. Now we're sitting at 100, and eventually it's going to come back and it's going to get closer to that 70 again. But as I've said before, I don't think it's because the price of gold is coming down.
No, and that's also a very important part, is that silver will have its day. If we look at the history and performance of gold and silver in relation to each other, that this is a typical trend. Gold takes a bolt and runs very fast and has a massive performance. Silver is very slow to react and then slowly catches up and then surpasses.
Definitely, yeah.
So again, I mean that's another part that we need to always say is the diversifications, even in precious metals, is important.
It definitely is. And another part that we always need to say is we are not financial advisors. We two guys running a company, trying to make the best of it and increasing our knowledge as we go along. And that's what we're trying to do for everybody at home as well. We're not giving out financial advice. Any investment that you do your own due diligence. Maybe speak to a proper financial advisor, but don't just jump into anything headlong.
I couldn't agree more. And we as a business have always said, diversify. Don't put everything in one thing. And again, it's important that when you even look at bullion companies, do your homework. Make sure you know and understand that their company's been trading, what their client base is, and so on. I mean, there are a lot of people out there that are so quick to grab the little bit of money you have and actually run off with it and disappear into the night.
It is an unfortunate reality of life. There's always people out there looking to make a quick buck at the expense of somebody else.
Willem, in closing, just with the members, I mean, what's great, just some feedback, is one of I think it was episode 19, had some really great responses, and it looks like there's been some nice traction there.
Definitely. So yeah, if you enjoyed the episode, leave a like. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe button, and then we'll see you guys in the next video.
Take care. Cheers.